Hello, Jarvis.
Welcome to From the Couch, Sports Talk Radio, the true definition of armchair quarterbacks. The two brothers express their highly inaccurate opinions about sporting news from chairs. Wait, they don't even have a couch? That's a dumb title. Anyhow. The views expressed by the hosts are only opinions, and any stated facts are purely coincidental. Sit back and enjoy yourself. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff and Dave.
Well, as you can see, it's not Jeff and Dave. It's Dave and Eric, and welcome to Thursday Night Football. From the couch, it is Nfc North Sit Down. What's happening, Big E? What's going on, brother?
Not a whole lot. Enjoying Bailey won another wrestling meet tonight. We've got state next week for 8th grade. We're about done, so looking forward to some R&R.
Awesome. Good to hear it. Good to hear it. So, hey, man, you can unmute your mic right now because we're going to get right into the nuts and bolts of yesterday's bloody Wednesday in the NFL for some teams. I know you're happy because you watched Buffalo whittle away their team and you think that they're dead in the water. But let's talk about it. So
I don't think they're dead in the water, Jeff. I think those moves were necessary. I'm more happy the big move that they're sharing on social media is they're signing Mitch Trubisky. When I think that, on all honesty, they could have probably got all kinds of good backup quarterbacks there. And, if you guys have to, God forbid now, if Josh Allen ever gets hurt, I would be more comfortable after watching Mitch last year with Jacoby Brissett and Mason Rudolph. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of different quarterbacks you could have hired or signed.
I love the signing. I like Mitch Trubisky in Buffalo. I think, first of all, I know you sit there and you wish ill will. I don't say you wish ill will, but you talk about Josh Allen and how he's due to get injured and so on and so forth. Well, he's been in the league 6 years and he's missed 2 games to injury. So my hope and my prayer is that I never have to see Mitch Trubisky other than the mop up after, we're winning by 20 points. But again, but the law of averages, and you're absolutely right. Quarterbacks get hurt all the time. Happens to everybody, happens to most players. So, but I'm comfortable with Mitch as the quarterback. He knows our system. He knows our offense. And again, I think there's certain players that fit certain schemes and certain players that don't. And the scheme that Pittsburgh ran, I don't think Mitch Trubisky was good at, because it didn't fit his skill set, or if people want to say lack of skill, whatever you want to say. I think based on what he did with Buffalo and based on that, I think he's a quality insurance policy. But again, if you are – no, neither of these guys are in the Lions or the Bears. We're getting to that probably Jeff. That's probably Jeff talking. So we will get to that. We're just talking about what's happening in free agency a little bit to start off the show before we take a deep dive into the NFC North.
Dave, for 1 second, since Jeff is watching, for the record and for all my viewers here, I do not dislike the Buffalo Bills. I actually would like to help you guys win a Super Bowl. And I think I'm the most qualified person who sees it the best way. And so for Jeff and all the others watching, I've been greatly disappointed that Josh Allen is a quarterback who I think is really, really good. And I think he's for Buffalo probably the best, most talented quarterback they've ever had. Almost an improved version mobility-wise of Ben Roethlisberger. Not quite, I don't think quite as I think Ben got really smart with where he went with the ball as he aged. And I don't think Allen's there, but physically I think he's the most gifted quarterback of all time. So what has me disappointed is the core is underachieved and they've let him down. And now he's had some faulty moments where he's got some blame in that. But I do think that if Diggs makes that catch or something, I think it could be different. So So that's for the record. I think the core, they are addressing the core and they are getting a new core, and good for them.
Yeah, Paul, I think you're right. Maybe the expectation was always too great for Buffalo at the time. And maybe it's right. Maybe when nobody expects for them to win, maybe they do. No, he did not. He did not say that, Jeff. He said that Josh Allen was probably the most gifted quarterback ever. So he did not say that Ben was more athletic. So just to clear that up, so there's no confusion. So I have to listen to this psycho nonsense in my chat line for.
Yeah, I'll see you in an hour. But no, I said Josh Allen's a more athletic version. I think Ben is more intelligent with the ball, throwing at this stage at 20.
And again, as we know, that comes with age, Eric. And I think that comes with age, experience. And again, I think Buffalo is going to do those things to get that talent. So I don't really.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the NFC North. But as we age into
one last thing before, because this is kind of an NFC North thing, because it kind of all ties in, and then we're going to actually move into the teams. Because I do want to talk to you about Pittsburgh, because they have reached out to Russell Wilson, okay? And so I'm just going to ask you something. If Russell Wilson signs with Pittsburgh, do you think this puts Pittsburgh ahead or behind?
We had this part of the cycle babble, which really Jeff gets under my skin. If anybody, for the backstory, real quick.
No, I'm just asking you a simple question. I'm not getting into all the.
No. Just let me get to the point, because I'm gonna tell the story real quick, because if we're gonna tell the story of why this question is getting answered. So the question is last year Pittsburgh had, I think, 14 total passing touchdowns, and so I was like, okay, well, if you hire or you sign a guy that's thrown 28 touchdowns, you're going to add 14 touchdowns to that. You're already 10-7, so you probably win 11 games, 12 games, and you're probably in a better spot than you were last year. So I do think if you have a quarterback that throws 28 versus a quarterback that throws 6, that by just the natural numbers, your team is going to be better, and you're going to be in a better spot at 12-5 or 13-4. You're going to have a home game in the playoff, and you could probably make a playoff run. It's that simple. So, ideally,
do you think that Russell Wilson turns Pittsburgh into a 13-4 or 12-5 team in that division with all those quarterbacks healthy?
So Cleveland's going to tank, and they won't. And they've got Watson's big contract, and they will not be good next year because Joe Flacco will be playing by mid-year. Watson hasn't worked out, and he won't work out. So, secondly.
But the one thing I will add, and now this is how it's going to tie into the NFC North, Jeffrey, for your viewing pleasure. Let me ask you this. Would Pittsburgh be better served? Because this is why I asked this question. Russell Wilson, let's say he comes in and Pittsburgh wins 11, 12 games, makes the playoffs. Okay, doesn't really do anything. They're drafting 22 to 25. Russell Wilson's 35 years old. Okay, when does Pittsburgh make a move to get a quarterback to take over after Russell Wilson picking so high? And does it really help them? Or do NFC North, Jeff, or should they pursue a guy like Justin Fields, who's younger, and if he works out and if he can achieve in that offense, and if they do make a deal with Chicago for a Justin Fields, don't you think that would be a better long-term solution for Pittsburgh so they can actually build and Justin Fields can maybe go to a team where he could grow into an offense better?
Yeah, Dave, let me answer that question. And I'm sorry, I apologize in the background. I have 2 kids up there fighting, and I just dealt with that. So I'm a father of 3 for those watching. No, the answer to the question would be, what do I give up for Justin Fields? So if I could give up a second-round pick or a combination of a third and a fourth, yeah, I think Justin Fields maybe long-term wise has a higher ceiling at this point than Russell Wilson. But am I willing to give up a first-round pick for a guy who's not made the playoffs yet and hasn't really achieved the attainable? No. And the answer is no, because that first-round pick may be TJ Watt at 29. I know Jeff would have a good time, but the answer is no. I think Russell Wilson, he says, well, he won't throw 28. Well, he did with a terrible Denver team. And if he throws 28 touchdowns in Pittsburgh, they're going to be 12-5. And that's all there is to it with that team because
I'd say yes, but again, I also believe that playing in the North is going to be a lot more challenging for Russell Wilson. I don't know if he throws 28 touchdowns in that division with the defenses that he has to play.
We'll see. We'll move on with that.
We're gonna move on. We are, and we're going right here now. We're gonna add to the NFC North report. All right, so let's go. Let's start this, and I'll talk first. I'll talk Chicago first because I want to talk about these guys because these guys, they're in a great position. They control the NFL draft, and this is my personal opinion. As much as Caleb Williams is the quote-unquote generational talent, I've said this before, and I will say it till the day I die. It doesn't matter who you draft at quarterback in Chicago. The problem is you are drafting Caleb Williams, and if you take him, you have a lame duck coach in Matt Eberflus. You're going to take Caleb Williams. If the Bears underachieve and win 3 games, 4 games, 5 games, whatever it may be with Caleb Williams, you're going to fire your coach. You're going to fire your coaching staff. You're going to bring in a whole new coaching staff. And Caleb Williams is going to be 2 years behind the 8 ball again. You're never going to develop a quarterback in Chicago. Your best bet is to take the guy you have in Justin Fields. You got $82 million in cap space. You bring talent around him offensively. You bring talent around him defensively. You trade back and get more draft picks. You get yourself another wide receiver opposite DJ Moore. You give him playmakers, and you allow that team to excel with Justin Fields. That is my opinion, because until that franchise learns how to develop a quarterback. Funny thing, I was listening to Mike Greenberg, and he was talking about the Chicago Bears, and he was just talking about the Green Bay Packers. And he said, here's the reason why Chicago could never be Green Bay. In 36 years, the Chicago Bears have had 38 different starting quarterbacks. In 36 years, the Green Bay Packers have had 3. That's insane. And their coaching staff, they need to develop. They can go out and draft the best generational quarterback, and in 3 years, he's going to be traded or let go again because they're going to bring in a new staff. This team has got to be able to have staff that can stick with the guy, develop a guy, and surround the guy with talent to bring out the best qualities in that quarterback. They have wasted Justin Fields. They have an opportunity with this draft pick and this draft, with the wide receivers available, with the skill positions available, with the other teams that need a quarterback, where they could get a massive haul and rebuild their team and have a guy like Justin Fields be able to develop with the young playmaking talent that they can get from those draft picks. They are absolutely nuts. If I was a GM and I had Justin Fields and I had this draft pick, I would be happy as a kid in a candy store, because I would fill my team with so much talent that Justin Fields will be looking at 3 number 1 wide receivers across the board, period. And defensively, I'd get the best defensive lineman, cornerback, whatever it was, to help my defensive backfield. I could write my own ticket and have those guys on my team for 5 years playing for cheap. And I'd have a young quarterback developed. And we could make, because the NFC is so watered down, and because any team really outside of, the 2 teams in the NFC East, They have six draft picks right now, Mike. They don't draft until pick, which doesn't make sense because that's wrong. Chicago has the number 1 overall pick. I don't know how KD put this slide together because Chicago picks number 1 overall. So, they don't have the 33rd pick. That's Carolina's team. I think he was looking at somebody else's draft picks. He was going through and probably went through Carolina's draft picks as opposed to, no, Mike, because the draft picks here are wrong. So, Eric, do you mind checking and telling me Chicago's draft picks, because I think he has Carolina's draft picks up here.
Yeah, let me look it up here real quick. We know they're first, and they're probably gonna, if they don't decide on Fields, which is gonna be this week. So Fields, that decision will be made within the next 8 days, probably by next Thursday's show or Wednesday's show, Free Agency Frenzy. So let's get a full list of their draft picks after the Ryan Bates trade, which was a great trade for Chicago. So they have number 1, they have number 9, they have number 75. So those are their 3 picks. So they'll make.
Yeah, you're pick number 1, pick number 9, and pick number 75. So
I see them if they keep Fields, they'll probably trade 1, and they'll probably get a king's ransom and get a late first-round pick and add a second and a third-round pick and probably have stockpile their team around Fields if they keep him.
If they traded 1, they'd probably trade down to 2 or 3. So they would have 3. They would have 9. They would probably have 35. And they would probably have a 3rd-round pick this year and a 1st-round pick next year. So again,
David won't be anybody in the top 3. I don't think that'll move up because there's 3 really good quarterbacks, and you can't go wrong. I think it'll be somebody outside the top 5.
Well, no, but again, out of the top 5, you better have a king's ransom to give that for that pick.
I don't disagree.
But again, I think if you're trying to get like a Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't think you don't move anything past 3. But because Arizona would take him, and I think if you want to put guys around him, and I'm not saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the consensus number 1 or wide receiver. But again, I don't think you go wrong with the Malik Neighbors or a Roman Duze either. So again, I think it's who they would value and what they could get. But again, be that as it may, if you did that, you could set your franchise up for the next 5 years. What's up, Belton? You could set your franchise up for the next 5 years. You have a good quarterback. You just need the people to develop that quarterback. Give me your thoughts on Chicago and what you think they will do and what you think they should do.
What I don't disagree. You and I are on the same page. And for those of you that watch us consistently, Dave and I did a mock draft, and I love that he's the Lonic that loves to do the drafts, and Jeff will be like, "Oh, drafting's stupid." But I had a great time doing a mock draft because we had fun with Chicago. What will they do and what should they do? What they should do is they probably should trade and get more picks because, ideally they have you're going to get 2 really good players at 1 and 9, but at 75, that's a long way. So, I would ideally try to fill more holes on that team. And how do you do it? You trade the number 1 pick, and then you have a quarterback, which Dave believes in. I'm not sold on Justin Fields, but I have enough picks where I want to build a great team around him and see what happens. And that's what I would do. What will they do? This is the team that traded the 2nd-round pick for Chase Claypool. So I know what they're going to do. They're going to do something stupid, and it's going to be hilarious. And I'm going to laugh at it just like I laughed at that Chase Claypool trade. I posted that on this site and on this show all the time, and it was the funniest thing. And they'll do it again. So they're going to draft some quarterback, and they're going to have no offensive coaches around him, and he's going to struggle just like Fields. He'll show flashes, and he'll be okay. But they'll trade Fields and get like a 2nd-round pick and get some linemen that'll probably help the quarterback, but won't be enough for them. And they'll do Chicago Bear type things.
Yeah, no, and that's my issue. And that's my issue with a lot of teams, because I think a lot of teams, or some teams, really don't know how to develop the quarterback properly. And because of that, some of these guys who had a chance never really had a chance. And, we're quick to laugh them off. We're quick to say, Sam Darnold. Well, as much as we laugh off Sam Darnold, if Sam Darnold went to a team like Kansas City with Andy Reid, is Sam Darnold a laughingstock? I don't know. If Patrick Mahomes, everybody picked on Chicago for passing up and drafting Mitch Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes goes to Chicago, is Chicago a playoff team? Is Chicago a Super Bowl winner? Probably not. Because, again, they don't know how to develop a quarterback, and they don't take the time to fill in the needs around them and make dumb trades like Chase Claypool and things like that. So, that's my issue. It's not the players that the Bears have. It's the organizational dysfunction year after year after year. And trust me, I know all about organizational dysfunction. For 20 years, I had to live through it. Dysfunction after dysfunction after dysfunction. So I know all about it, and I see it. And some teams can get off the cycle and put a quality team together, and some teams continue the same cycle and the same pattern. So
I don't disagree, and we can move on. I want to give Katie some props. Those of you that are fans of the show that have watched Dave over the years, and Michael, I don't disagree with skeptical on Harrison too. I've been vocal and said I think Malik Neighbors is the best wide receiver. Harrison is by name only the best wide receiver. But I love the graphic. Real quick before we move on, I just want to make a mental note that Dave called that Edmonds is a great outside linebacker, and there he is. He is a decent outside linebacker. Isn't that right, Dave?
Which one? Tremaine?
Edmonds. Yeah, Tremaine. He's a good outside linebacker, right?
He would be better as an outside linebacker than he is a middle.
I agree.
I think Buffalo played him in the wrong position.
That was one of my favorite topics on the show for years and years. And I just see his pretty face on the graphic. So I just wanted to remind the fans.
I believe that I've always said that Terrell Edmonds was just positioned wrong in Buffalo. I like Terrell Edmonds, but he just wasn't the right position player. I mean, he made a hell of a lot of tackles. I mean, don't get me wrong. He made the Pro Bowl in Buffalo. And again, as much as I got mad at him on Sundays for him picking the wrong hole, my argument wasn't about him as a player. It was about the position they had him play. I think they just had him in the wrong position. But
all right, moving forward,
let's go. Detroit. Eric, take it away. Tell us about the Detroit Lions.
Oh boy. So this is a team that's set up for success, are they not? So they came that close to beating San Francisco minus some coaching decisions, which asked Sean about those coaching decisions sometime on a Tuesday. But so outside of the coaching decisions that they screwed up on, this is a team that is close to getting over the hump, and they've got money. And so a team with money, Paul, we talked about free agency a little bit. The Bears are not going to do a whole lot with free agency. They're going to be more dependent on what they do with Justin Fields about what they do with free agency. I think we hit that. But as far as the Lions are concerned, they've got money to spend with free agency. They've got Gardner Johnson, Tracy Walker. Go ahead.
Can I just go back for 1 second? Because Paul, to your point, let me just go back in the slide here.
Okay.
They did end up putting the franchise tag on Jalen Johnson on the last day, and they did sign him to a 4-year contract extension. So they did take care of one of their own, which I thought was a good move. The guys that they have in free agency, the notable free agents, I think they could lose any one of those guys and not blink. Maybe Ngakoue might be he's a solid lineman. But again, nothing flashy, nothing spectacular. But they have the money, and he might be able to come back, and they might get him for a song. And, he could be, he's a solid lineman, but he's not going to get you 18 sacks, and he's not going to do those things for you. he is a solid defensive lineman. But the rest of the free agents, the notable ones that I see here, they took care of the one that they had to, and that was Jalen Johnson. So, we'll see what they do in free agency. They have a hell of a lot of money to spend. Let's see if they spend it wisely.
And it's all dependent on if they're trying to win now or trying to win later. And I think that's all dependent on what they do with Justin Fields. I mean, it's all dependent on, are we trying to win the division now, or are we trying to build around a quarterback in 2 to 3 years down the road? So I think they answer that question, and all their question offseason plan gets unraveled here in the next 7 days. So back to Detroit, they will spend because they're trying to win now, and they can win now. So Goff's their guy. They're behind him, and he got them far enough to earn another shot. Gardner Johnson's, and they've got some interesting guys who I think that they can possibly go outside and replace, but they may want to bring them back and have another run at this thing. I do think a sneaky priority with the Detroit Lions is I think they want another elite pass rusher outside of Hutchinson, and I think they will go and spend big on that. And this is where you could see, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, I've got a cold, but the outside linebacker, Khalil Mack, right? He's a free agent over there for the Chargers. This is a Khalil Mack destination. Try to win a Super Bowl. Hutchinson on the other side could work, and it could be good, and it could be really good playing for that coach. So ideally, this is a team to watch. They draft picks wise, 29, 61, 73, 92. So 4 in the first 100. This is a team that I definitely QB's not a need this year behind Goff. He's going to be the guy. But they could maybe go and get Spencer Rattler at 92.
They have Hendon Hooker. I don't think QB's a need.
Oh, they do have Hendon Hooker. Yeah, so they're not going to get a QB. I forgot about Hendon Hooker. I hope his rehab is going well because he was
killing it. Is actually.
Is it? Yeah. So yeah, he was killing it down there. But yeah, they need another weapon at wide receiver, and I could see that at 29.
And that's what I was going to ask you, Eric. Yeah. Do you think? Look at Jameson Williams was drafted 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So he come into the league. He's had issues. He came into the league. The first year he got hurt. Second year he got suspended. This being his third year, do you think they finally? Because to me, looking at the free agents, the one guy that I really like, and because he's dependable, he's that guy who can make the tough catch when they need to. He's the unsung wide receiver, and that's Josh Reynolds, who's a free agent. Do you think they let Reynolds walk and allow Jameson Williams to finally get the full offense and let him be a part of the everyday game plan as opposed to the situational game plan? Or do you really see them going and trying to get another wide receiver? I mean, granted, you're going to need somebody opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown, but do you think that Jameson Williams could still be that guy?
I think he'll be in the mix, but if I'm going to make a prediction right now to see what happens, and I had to, and I don't disagree. I think Hendon Hooker is a stud. I'm glad we remembered him. I hope he's doing well with his rehab. I wouldn't be surprised to see them take a big swing on an A.J. Brown or somebody. And, A.J. Brown ain't going to act up in front of Dan Campbell, I promise you. That will not fly in that locker room. If anybody can handle some of the trouble wide receiver issues, Dan Campbell can handle the trouble wide receiver issues. So this is a team that may take a big swing and try to get that big weapon to kind of free up the middle. And then to your point, that'll free up the middle of the field, and your boy can go ahead and exploit, linebacker coverage all day long because you're going to have to drop a safety over the top of A.J. Brown and St. Brown. That would be
with the money that they had to spend. And they only have 7 picks.
Yep.
Would they be more justified in maybe not swinging and giving up draft picks and rookies and maybe taking a swing at a guy like a Calvin Ridley who's out there?
I don't think Calvin Ridley ends up there. But to Paul's point, I think if you tell A.J. Brown or, Amon St. Brown that, hey, we're going to try to feed A.J. and let him think he's the number one wide receiver, I think they could make that work. And I think you can sell that. And I think you can sell it as, hey, we can win a Super Bowl, and we'll feed you the ball in big times and get your stats and make you happy. I think that marriage could work. And if anybody can handle that, and a big personality like AJ Brown, it's Dan Campbell.
I can almost agree with you, except for one point. I don't think AJ Brown can handle that, because the truth of the matter is this: Amon-Ra St. Brown is the number one wide receiver on that team.
But he's
AJ Brown was upset because they kept throwing to Devonta Smith, and AJ Brown sulked off the field and got pissed off, threw his helmet down because Devonta Smith was getting all the passes and he wasn't. So if you're AJ Brown, you got to go to a team that has no number one receiver and no help on the outside, so they throw him the ball 250 times, because that's the only way the guy's going to smile and be happy. Because the simple fact is, what AJ Brown fails to realize is football is a team sport, and you have 2 wide receivers, 3 wide receivers, tight end. Okay, there's a lot of balls that have to be shared. Sam Laporte is a big part of that offense. Amon-Ra is a part of that offense. Jamison Williams is going to be a part of that offense. Jahmyr Gibbs is a part of that offense. What's his name? The other running back, the guy from Chicago, Montgomery's a part of that offense. He ain't going to be the top dog, the number one guy, the head target, and all that stuff. And he's got to realize that. So if he needs to check his attitude at the door, and yeah, Dan Campbell might be able to handle that. But we also know that Dan Campbell won't put up with crap. And I mean, so to give up draft picks for somebody that I might have to cut 2 weeks later because I'm not dealing with this crap, I just don't see a fit in Detroit, only for that reason. Now, can Dan Campbell handle that? Yeah, but when you're a team that almost was a game away from the Super Bowl, do you want to bring and invite that drama back into a locker room that's solid behind their coach and everything? And now you want to bring a diva or a headache to your locker room when you have guys all playing together?
Didn't Philadelphia bring in, here's the historian, bring in Terrell Owens when they were close? And he was a diva, but they went to the Super Bowl. And
yeah, but Terrell Owens also played with a broken leg. Terrell Owens loved football. He might have been a diva, but at the end of the day, he loved the game of football.
Yeah, and that was
walk through a wall.
That was the gutsiest performance a wide receivers ever had.
Well, it certainly was. But guess what happened? Guess what happened after that year? Terrell Owens was sent walking.
Yeah. So what a shame. But yeah, we can just. I think Dan Campbell can handle it, and if not, for my entertainment purposes, I would love to see a WWE match with Dan Campbell and AJ Brown. I think that would be. I think that would be fun. But and he did ball out. Donovan McNabb doesn't eat all that pizza the night before and drink all those beers. They win that game. Still to this day, he's over there puking at the end. But to Detroit's part, I mean, they have a good coaching staff. They have Antoine Randall, one of my favorite players of all time. He's there, and he's a really strong leader, and he's always been a great leader. And they've got a great locker room. I think they could control it, but I think they take a big swing. And I don't think it's Calvin Ridley here. They will get somebody that's going to be a great weapon to put around Goff. And I don't disagree with Paul's idea either about they're all replaceable, because these guys are all replaceable here. I think they could let them walk and find different options. So we'll see what happens with Detroit. I think this could be a very dangerous team. And I'm going to say Khalil Mack's up there, and I think they do want an edge rusher. Whatever they get in free agency here, they'll go out and draft to their need. And I think it'll probably be a secondary player if I had to guess, because I think they'll probably go get a free agent, big name wide receiver and an edge here.
You know who I think would be a good fit in Detroit?
Who's that?
Leonard Floyd.
I could see it.
On the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, Leonard Floyd had 12 and a half sacks last year with no real help on the outside. Mm-hmm. With Aiden Hutchinson on that side and Leonard Floyd still having that gas, I think that would be huge for Detroit.
So next Wednesday, for the love of God, somebody sign Michael Thomas to make Paul happy, because every time we have a discussion about wide receivers, Michael Thomas gets thrown out there.
I think Michael Thomas is going to be a good receiver for a team, and I think that His injury slowed him down for the last year. It takes a little bit to come back from that kind of injury that he had. All in all, Chris Olave, rose to the top and took his spot, and he was trying to find a fit on an offense with a new quarterback, a new system. And so, I think Mike Thomas is going to be a good addition to a team.
So Paul wants him to leave New Orleans. I think it would be hilarious if he goes to – and here's a cost-efficient wide receiver for the Walmart shopping clearance aisle, Buffalo Bills. There you go.
Maybe. You never know. Maybe.
Yeah, I think
I wouldn't cry about it.
Yep. Okay, very good. So,
all right, so let's go.
Detroit.
Let's go from Detroit. Oh, and I will say that for their notable free agents, the one guy that I might see him sign back would probably be Okwara. The other guys, I do like Josh Reynolds. I'd take him. I would try to re-sign him to a deal because I do think that they value his consistency, and he's one of those kind of guys that if you need the 9 yards, he gets you 10. And when you need that important catch, he's the guy that they go to. And he's just that sneaky good receiver that's just consistent. He doesn't have flashy numbers. He doesn't have 80 catches. But when you need the 9 yards, he gets you 10. And I think that's important on any team. So we'll see what happens with Josh Reynolds. But next, we'll go to the Green Bay Packers. And they surprised the hell out of me last year. They got $12 million, the youngest team in the NFL. They're notable free agents. A.J. Dillon, they've already said he's not going to be back. Let's see. Darnell Savage, John Runyon, older guys, they need to replace those. They got 11 draft picks. So this team is going to be even younger this year. But they have the draft picks, and they have the ability to move up or down in that draft to either go up to get a guy that they really need. And I think offensive tackle, I think if they could package a couple draft picks, their first and maybe their 48th pick, and move down a couple spots to grab a guy like J.C. Latham, I think that would put them in a good position, especially with the young quarterback. Well, not young, but because he's been in the league 5 years now. But Jordan Love, to protect him and keep him upright, and to allow those young receivers and Jaden Reed and Dobbs and what's his name? Christian Watson. Give them the ability to get open and do that kind of stuff. I think they have a bright future. They don't have a lot of cap space. I'm sure they might be doing a little bit of salary maneuvering and manipulating to get some more dollars freed up, because they do need to go out and now they should not draft a quarterback. I could see him drafting a later round quarterback, as a backup, because you're right. Nobody knows. You're right, Paul. He could be a one and done guy. Yeah, a fourth rounder would be perfect. Get a young guy behind Jordan Love to sit and watch and learn like the Packers usually do. The Packers are pretty good at drafting quarterbacks, developing quarterbacks, letting them get comfortable in their system. And they'll find a quarterback in the third, fourth round, probably fourth or fifth round, that fits their team, fits what they're doing, because their scouts look for guys that have that type of makeup. And that's what Green Bay's really good at. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did that. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Again, I think, who's that quarterback? Mitten, Joe Mitten. Is that his name? If I'm not mistaken, the one who was throwing 60-yard passes, flicking his wrist, the one that they were talking about at the combine. Yeah. So again, that could be a guy like that. And they do need a running back. I think 25 is too high to draft a running back.
41.
Every mock draft I've seen, there is no first round running back taken.
So Dave, I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on Green Bay because they're not going to be very aggressive next Wednesday because of their cap space. But this is a team that if Joe Alt falls to 10, could package a deal and move up and go get him if they wanted to get their guy at tackle. So they have the capital to do it, and they've got a ton of draft picks and not a great amount of needs. So safety is going to be a need. I could see them getting a mid. There's going to be a ton of safeties on the market. It won't be Jamal Adams because he will be a Cowboy, but they'll get some sort of safety that fits their style. I could see one of the Bills safeties ending up here actually on a relatively friendly deal. I'm going to go out here on March 7th and say Jordan Love, I think, isn't one and done, and I think he's going to be an MVP candidate. I think he's going to be really good. I can't wait to watch him next year. So I think Green Bay is a team to watch. I think they're going to be the one big threat to Detroit next year. Being as it may, they've got a young, developing team. I like the weapons they have around them. With that yellow star above your head, you look like a Jack in the Box. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that, Sean. Happy weekend to you. It's Thursday. But so I do think that good old Sean getting us off topic here. Come on on, Sean. We'll talk about our star here. But I do think Green Bay ends up being really aggressive in the draft and probably moves up if they can get their guy in the first round. And I think it'll be a tackle. I think you've got to protect your quarterback because your quarterback ended up being really good. And surprise, surprise, Green Bay knew what they were doing the whole time while everybody criticized him. So moving forward, tackle will probably be what I draft. Running back at 41, Blake Corum. I don't disagree with Paul at all. I think he would be a great complement running back. I think A.J. Dillon's going to be a sneaky good signing for somebody because he's going to come in and get them 3, 4, 5 yards in December and win games. But I think Corum would be a fit. I could see definitely, using Corum on third down. He's kind of a multi-purpose back. He's also got power. He reminds me of Maurice Jones-Drew a lot in how he runs. He's not just, I know his frame isn't the biggest, but he's got some power to him. So I would think he would be a good fit. I could see him there at 41. That would be a good fit for them after they go get their tackle, or 48, depending on if they move up to get their tackle. But this will be a team that's aggressive on draft day, and they're going to continue to build through the draft.
You know who else I think would be a pretty decent fit in Green Bay? And he's not getting a lot of love, but I've watched. Sorry, Jeff. I've watched some film. Okay, I've watched highlights. I've watched some of the film of the the combine, and I've watched some of his highlights anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen is a really good running back. He might not be in the top 5 running backs that they have listed, but I think a guy like Braylon Allen in Green Bay, I think you could see him do some good and exciting things. I've watched him, and he's explosive and he's big. In that kind of back in that kind of environment, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he might be one of their draft targets too.
I give Dave a lot of credit. Last year during the draft, there's a couple things. There are some wide receivers that he said would be dangerous and that he would predict it would end up on a team like Houston, and they ended up pretty dangerous. And then he called Bijan Robinson to the Falcons when all of us laughed because the Falcons had nothing but running backs. And that's what the Falcons did. So I give you credit, Dave. If that's what you think they may do, they may end up doing that.
Yeah, I've just seen him, and I think he's their kind of running back. Just because I look at certain things and I see certain styles, and I just think that he would be a good fit. And not that Corum wouldn't be. Tony Franklin, I don't think Tony Franklin is the kind of running back that would go there. He's more of the scat back, and Green Bay doesn't. I mean, they have an Aaron Jones, but even Aaron Jones was more of a, he was the scat back, but he was also the in-between tackle guy too, before A.J. Dillon got there. So, I mean, they say that Tony Franklin is the quote-unquote number 1 back in the draft. But, again, it's going to be team determined, fit determined. And so, again, I look at a Braylon Allen going to a team like Green Bay, and I could see that happening because you could probably get him at 48. And again, I do think, like I said, I think safety. There are safeties out there, but if they decide to go youth at safety at 25, I could see them maybe taking the either a Cameron Kitchens out of Miami. I think the other guy that first safety will be off the board probably in the teens. But there've been I was reading an article today, and we'll move on, but there's been over $100 million cut from safeties in the NFL so far. And the Denver Broncos released Justin Simmons today, the safety. So safety, hybrid linebacker, whatever. So there's plenty of safeties on the market for these teams to, but again, Green Bay, I don't think is going to be a big player in free agency. I think they're going to they got 11 picks in the draft, and with their salary cap, what it is, and they don't have a lot of contracts that they can shuffle around and free up a lot of space because most of their team is rookies. They're still on rookie deals. You know what I mean? So they don't have a lot of that maneuverability other than to extend them and do that. But so
they're an exciting young team who's going to compete for a NFC title in the next 3 years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So moving on, let's go Minnesota. Eric, tell us about the Vikings.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh boy. What a mess, right? Because if I remember right, they're trying to figure out what they want to do with Jetta, right? They're trying to figure out if Justin Jefferson is going to be the guy or they're going to trade him. So that's the big thing is like, are you going to build around Justin Jefferson at this point or are you going to not? And boy, their quarterback situation was dog crap outside of a few good games from Dobbs there when he first came. It was really bad. And I mean really bad. And I watched some bad quarterback play on this side of town, but it was really bad. So what do you do with Kirk Cousins? You continue to bring him back and you make another run with Jetta? Or do you go and, their draft picks are 11, 42, and 108. Do you possibly pull the trigger and hope that maybe a quarterback falls to you at 11? I don't think it'll be Jaden Daniels, but maybe a Jaden Daniels, maybe the guy from Michigan, or Drake May, who gives me Mitch Trubisky vibes. So I'm not sure I want Drake May, but I've heard really good things about him. What do you do with that team? So you got some older veterans, Daniel Hunter, Jordan Hicks, Cam Akers, Anthony Barr. I had the unfortunate season last year that after my Steeler games, being that my son is a Vikings fan, of watching this team play on Sundays, and they were not fun to watch. So they need youth in a bad way. They need I don't think Bo Nix goes at 11. You could probably get Bo Nix in the second round, Paul. But they need youth. So Daniel Hunter is one I would probably re-sign because they don't have much of a pass rush, and they need one. And Anthony Barr, he can go. Cam Akers, you can replace him with a running back. A lot of these guys you can replace, but what do you do with Cousins? Is he going to be the quarterback because of bad? And if he's not going to be the quarterback and he's going, that means I think they draft a quarterback. And I ideally think it's going to happen because I don't think you can go out there and look at any of these other quarterbacks on the market and be like, let me just bring in Kirk Cousins vanilla or Kirk Cousins strawberry or Kirk Cousins chocolate. I mean, you're not going to get a different flavors of Kirk Cousins, so you got to go do something different. So at 11, it'll be interesting. I don't think Bo Nix goes that high, and if they do, that'll be one of the worst mistakes in draft history because he's going to be an okay quarterback, but he's not 11 good quarterback. But
this is where I think the NFC North, Minnesota Vikings, and the AFC North, Pittsburgh Steelers, this is where I look at this from a quarterback standpoint. And I'm not picking on Pittsburgh. You've had Kirk Cousins. You were division champions year after year, drafting high, never really doing anything to fix your backup quarterback or your quarterback of the future problem because you had all your money invested in Kirk Cousins. that you never stop to smell the roses and say, hey, this guy's not going to play forever, and he's still going to want money, and we're not going to pay him another, 70 million guaranteed contract over 2 years. So now at 11, they have 8 picks. They can mortgage their draft picks for some of this year and next year and move up to get a JJ McCarthy or something like that to take over for Kirk Cousins. But I see Paul's scenario where you're going to be in desperate need of a quarterback, that you're going to take a second or third round talent in Bo Nix in the first round, the same as Pittsburgh did with Kenny Pickett when they had no backup plan for Ben Roethlisberger. And that's going to be your dilemma. And that's going to be your downfall. So you either mortgage your draft picks and say, number one, we got to pay our star, Justin Jefferson, a lot of money, or do we tear this thing down, get some more draft picks, get another first round pick, because Justin Jefferson is definitely worth a first round pick. Okay. And build our team outside of Justin Jefferson. We drafted Jordan Addison. This draft is deep in wide receivers, so we can add playmakers. We can trade Justin Jefferson and then maybe move up to get a JJ McCarthy and build our team that way, and have those picks from the Justin Jefferson trade to move up to get a JJ McCarthy at 9 or 8. Do that, understanding that you're getting rid of a top 2 or 3 receiver in the league. Okay, maybe number 1. That's debatable. CeeDee Lamb is just as high and just as good. But that's the dilemma that Minnesota, because if not, you're gonna have to be paying Justin Jefferson $150 million over 5 years, and you're going to have to make him happy, and you're not going to make him happy with a Bo Nix as quarterback.
So here's the thing with JJ McCarthy and Jeff, we, with our great minds that Dave and I put together, we did a draft and we had a run on quarterbacks early, and it's not always are they talented enough to be top 10, but how do teams react when they start seeing them fly off the board? And that's why drafts, experts like Dave and I, who I think could replace Mel Kiper in a heartbeat, sit here and analyze this. So is JJ McCarthy a top 10 talent? No, but is he going to go top 10 or top 15? Yes, because teams will watch those quarterbacks fly off the board and they'll get scared and they'll be like, oh crap, I'm going to end up with Bo Nix, and they'll draft him. And so I think Minnesota, ideally, what they do is I think they package a deal, and I think that they do trade Justin Jefferson, and I think they move up into the top 10, whether you think it's a mistake or not, and you go ahead and get JJ McCarthy, and they get that quarterback. Whether it's a package deal and they get a bunch of draft picks on top of that, I think, and they trade some of those draft picks to do it, I think they do it, and I do think they move it. This is a team that moves up and gets a quarterback, and JJ McCarthy would be that guy. If I was a gambling man,
you know what? I don't have to watch college games, Jeff. I study players and I study teams, and I know those teams, and I understand the nuances of football teams and their makeup. And I watch NFL teams, and then I go back during the draft and during this time, and I go and I watch YouTube and I watch players, and I watch and I see year after year. I see patterns in drafts, like Eric says. So that's why you get a run on offensive linemen. That's why you get a run on guys that, oh my God, they're starting to draft wide receivers. That's why 4 wide receivers or 3 wide receivers went back to back to back right in the middle of the first round, 18, 19, 20, and 21. All the receivers went off the board right back to back to back, because no team didn't want to have one of those wide receivers.
New England could package a deal here, and and I know New England needs a quarterback too, but some team could say, look, I'll let you move up to 6 or 7. and we'll give you a second round pick and a fourth round pick, and you give us the 11 and you give us Jetta, and it could happen. And ideally, I think the Vikings look at the rest of the division and they're going to panic and draft a quarterback. Because look, you've got Green Bay, who's going to compete for a title in 3 years, who has a great team that's coming up. You have Detroit, who has a great team, and you have Chicago, who has all kinds of capital here. So you're the Minnesota Vikings. You have to do something now, or you're going to be in the cellar, and you're going to be in the cellar for a while, because these teams are young and they're good. Outside of maybe Chicago, which I think will screw the pooch, but that'll be funny. So you got to keep up with Green Bay and Detroit. So you got to get a quarterback, and you got to take a big swing here, and you got to hope that quarterback is going to be the guy for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. No, and again, like I said, I could sit here and say, hey, they should just throw in the towel this year, tank, and get the first pick next year or whatever and draft a quarterback. Okay, cool. Shutter Sanders, is he the answer? Is he a generational talent? No. I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. So if I'm Minnesota and I'm looking, well, if I don't do it now, I'm going to have to wait a good 2-3 years. Like what? Maybe when Arch Manning comes out, if he's going to be the generational talent because his last name's Manning, I don't know, maybe.
He can't even get on the field right now because there's another guy who's really good in Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, Jeff, you're right. Minnesota should be a team that's looking at that's calling up and asking to talk to Russell Wilson. But again, this is the same thing that I say time and time again. People talk about the salary cap, and Eric has said it numerous times. You kick the can, and then the bill comes due. Sign a 35-year-old quarterback in Russell Wilson. Kick the can. Are you going to compete? Are you going to be competing with Detroit? Are you going to be competing with Green Bay by signing Russell Wilson and kicking the can down the line to be the middle of the road, picking 14, 15 in the draft? Are you going to be able to get your quarterback? When do you get your quarterback? You don't. Very rarely, seldom if ever, do you get a generational talent free agent quarterback. You have to finish low enough in the draft, or you have to have the players and the picks to get it done. Justin Jefferson could get you into that situation where you could have a 10-year, 12-year starting quarterback on your roster if you're willing to trade him.
So look, Dave, he says that Jefferson will not stay in Minnesota. That's the point. He's going to get traded. And that's why you hear the smoke and you see the fire coming from the media and from the reports and people talking about it, because they're going to draft a quarterback. And they've told him, and he doesn't want to be there. And so they're going to trade him. Just like I tell you, I see the smoke coming from the Bills, and they go ahead and do what I tell you they do. The smoke's coming on Justin Jefferson. They're just as sure as I was with Mitch Morse, Justin Jefferson will not be there on opening day, and he will be traded, and that's okay. Because ideally, the Vikings have to look towards, we are going to try to compete in 2 to 3 years, and we need to get our rookie, and we need to get him experience, and we need to build a young team like Green Bay's young and like Detroit's young in order to try to make a run at this thing. And so, yeah, I think they probably make a trade with Justin Jefferson. I think they move up in the draft. And whether J.J. McCarthy is the guy or not, he's competitive and he's tough. And I watched a lot of college football. Maybe you guys don't, but I did on Saturdays. And I watch all football. And I think J.J. McCarthy is a tough guy. And he's going to be a guy that tries to win. Now, whether he has the athletic tools or not in the NFL, these linebackers are big. They're fast. These safeties are big. They're fast. And they hit hard. And so I don't know if he can take it, but I can tell you he's a competitor. And I think he fits that system that Minnesota is going to want to try to build. And so that's what I think they do there.
Well, here's the problem. And if they let Justin Jefferson go, Paul, what offensive talent do they have? That's the only offensive talent they have.
Oh, Jeff, he did his running backs.
Here's the problem. They have no running game. Their running backs are gone. Madison's gone. Cam Akers is coming off an AC or a Achilles tear. He's gone. He's a free agent. He ain't going to get re-signed. The only talent they have on offense is Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. They have no tight end. I'm sorry. They got Hawkinson, don't they?
Yeah, he's there.
So they got Hawkinson. They got their 2 wide receivers and a tight end. That's it. But regardless, they have no quarterback and they have no plan. So again, my issue is you can go and sign a Russell Wilson. You can try to trade for a Justin Fields. Okay, you can do that. But at the end of the day, what is going to keep Justin Jefferson happy? He wants to have a quarterback who's going to throw the ball, 300, 400 times a year to make Justin Jefferson happy. He's going to want to play in a pass happy offense. And that's not going to happen in Minnesota. You're not going to pay Kirk Cousins to come back. And all you're doing is kicking the can down the road. But in the meantime, you got to sign Justin Jefferson to an extension. So is your plan in Minnesota to go out and sign nothing but, 12-year veterans for the next 5 years to keep Justin Jefferson happy? Or do you want to build your team?
Okay.
That's where I look at it. You got to build your team.
Timeout. J.J. McCarthy made some big plays for Michigan. I thought you didn't watch college football. I think the SEC is a tougher conference, Jeff. I don't disagree. But McCarthy's a competitor. I mean, they just won the national title, and it wasn't just because he's handing the ball off. Cousins isn't coming back, and that's what we're saying. You're not going to just go. Russell Wilson's not going to want to go to Minnesota. Second off, he's not going to sign there because he wants to go to a team that has a decent defense and that has been in the playoffs and that he can have a shot to win. And it's not going to be Minnesota. They're the furthest thing from that conversation because they're not in a position to win right now. So ideally, I don't think he ends up there. I think he ends up, Wilson will end up somewhere in the AFC, and that's still to be determined, or the NFC, depending on what happens with Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. But does Baker Mayfield take an opportunity? I could see that, but that's just Cousins light because he's just a few years younger than Cousins. Minnesota is going to have to try to stop kicking the can down the road and face the future. And they're going to get a quarterback, and they're going to get one of the top 4 quarterbacks, and there will be a run on quarterbacks, and they'll all be gone by 15. So ideally, it'll be McCarthy. It'll be, if they have that high enough capital, Drake May, or it'll be another quarterback or Jaden Daniels, and that could happen. But I don't think that he'll be there. But they'll get their guy, and there's plenty of receivers. It's a deep draft, right? You can get playmakers in round 3 or 4. So they'll draft some young receivers, and they'll try to build a young offense, similar to what Green Bay did. And that's probably the best course of action for them with a deep wide receiver draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how I look at this. I mean, yeah, it sucks when you have to let somebody go. Hey, Eric, talk for 1 second. I got to answer the phone real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, so I guess the floor is mine. So Dave thinks that he's a late 6th-round pick. I can see if J.J. McCarthy is a late 6th-round pick. You know who else was a 6th-round pick, Jeff? Tom Brady from Michigan. And he won all the Super Bowls, including dog walk the Bills for every year. So ideally, in this offense, he's going to be handing the ball off and doing a lot of play action. But he's also going to be the guy that's going to win the game late in games and drive down and beat you. Because, why? He's got that clutch gene. And that some quarterbacks have it, some don't. And we can talk about the ones that don't, can't we? Waiting for your comment, Jeff. Oh, that's right. Come on the show. We'll talk sometime about that. Dave's back, so I'm going to turn the floor back over to him.
Yes. See, if anybody's watching the comments on here, this is what we all have to deal with on a daily basis from when I wake up at 6:30 in the morning until I go to bed at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. These guys are up here at 1 o'clock in the morning still going back and forth. This is, I'm going to take a screenshot of this and put it in our chat just so we can carry on the conversation from today already. But no, what I look at, and again, maybe I should be a scout. Maybe I should be a GM because I'm not afraid to trade a Justin Jefferson. I'm not, because the biggest issue I have is, and I've said it to you, Eric, I've said it about Buffalo, I've said it about every team. If Minnesota was one player away from winning the Super Bowl, I don't trade Justin Jefferson. But when I look at their position, when I look at their division, and I look at all the teams they have to overcome, Justin Jefferson is not going to push me to the Super Bowl. Justin Jefferson is not the difference between me winning a Super Bowl and competing for one than not. The only position that truly matters in the NFL is quarterback. Every other position is expendable for the most part. Because here's the deal. And it's proven over time, except in a few instances. 96% of the time, the teams with the best quarterback are in the Super Bowl at that point in time. It's just a fact. Yes, you get your Brad Johnsons. Yes, you get your Trent Dilfers. But that's because their defenses were so much better than anybody else. But for the most part, at this point in the NFL, it is a quarterback-driven league. Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl this year, and his receivers led the league in drops. That nobody thought Patrick Mahomes was going to win a Super Bowl this year based on their entire offense. Patrick Mahomes had his worst statistical season in his career this year, and he won the Super Bowl. Players want to play with elite quarterbacks. They don't care if Justin Jefferson is on the side. They care about who's throwing the ball. They care about the guy behind center. They don't care that they get to play with Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is an expendable commodity on a team that, I love Justin Jefferson. He's great, blah, blah, blah. Is he going to win me a Super Bowl? No, but if the 4 other draft picks I get for trading him stockpile my team to give me on a Super Bowl, I'll take it all day long, and Justin Jefferson can go by.
So, Dave, to wrap this up real quick, I think you would be an excellent GM to the Vikings, and I don't disagree with what you're saying about what to do with them in the future. I think we're in agreement of that, just as much as I think that as well of a fit you would be for Minnesota, I think I'd be a perfect fit for Buffalo, and I think I'd win a Super Bowl there. And I'd piss Dave, or I'd piss Jeff off along the way, but I'd probably hire him and give him a bunch of money to work under me.
I think what we should do, Eric, is I think we should call Buffalo and call Minnesota and say, can we GM you guys for 1 year, and we'll see if we meet up in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, bro. I think that would be fantastic. I think it would be awesome. So, yeah, and I would do it for half the money that these guys are getting paid to
I'd do it for free. I'd be like, let me be an intern GM and just do your draft this year, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Jeff can run the concession stands as I win a Super Bowl in 3 years.
Oh, man. There you go.
I don't know what videos he has, but I'm telling you, I've talked to Jeff more than I've talked to any human being on this planet. So if anybody knows it's the Joker to the Batman or the Batman to the Joker, it would be that guy. But, wrapping it up, moving forward, Vikings will be back. They're a team that has always competed, and they've been a tough team and a tough out from the days of Brad Johnson. Even when they had him, they were competing for playoffs, and Randall Cunningham, Dante Culpepper. This is a team that'll figure it out, but they're going to have to face their issues now because they're 4th place in the division because everybody else is young, hungry, and getting better. And so whether we agree with it or not, I guess the big debate will be on the show here in a couple years or year and a half. Is J.J. McCarthy good and is he not good? Because if I was a betting man, and I'm going to win our bet, Jeff, with Von Miller,
I think J.J. McCarthy is good.
We can have another one, but I think J.J. McCarthy will end up being okay.
Mm-hmm. I think you will. I mean, especially if the teams that are mocked to him and the teams that have been linked to him, he's better than any quarterback they have right now.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to say J.J. McCarthy's a 6th-round pick, yet they're talking about the Giants taking J.J. McCarthy, well, then I guess Danny Dimes to you is Dan Marino. I mean, if you're gonna put the baskets in the cart, would you rather have Danny Dimes or J.J. McCarthy? I mean, and you'll say, well, they're both 6th-round picks. Well, but I'm telling you, who's the better quarterback, and who's the better starting quarterback, and who's going to be the better starting quarterback? J.J. McCarthy. And so again, you're the apples to oranges thing. Well, they're both 6th-round picks. They both suck. They shouldn't even be playing in the league. Well, that's your attitude, but it's not an argument. I mean, yeah, maybe they shouldn't be, but the fact is they are, because they're the top 0.1% of the athletes in the world that are playing this game, and they're going to have the opportunity to be drafted early and play the game.
JJ is better than Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Look, Bo Nix played in a conference that had no defense. And when he did play in the SEC, he was not great.
I think the one surprise in this draft, and I really think, and I know it's the underwear Olympics, and I know it's just the combine, and I know some people look better, but the one guy is the guy that KD mentioned, that Joe Milton. I think that guy, because of where they project him to be, I think he could really surprise people. And I think he really could be one of those, I'm not going to say Brock Purdy guys, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be a 4th-round pick, and he could really surprise people and start and be a very good quarterback, depending on the team that he ends up on and if they're good at developing quarterbacks. I really believe that he could be that guy. He could be that guy that surprises a hell of a lot of people, because if he ends up in the right situation that has a veteran who's aging, but they're a team that is very good at developing quarterbacks, I believe if he falls in the right situation in the right spot, he could very well be a very good late round, mid-round steal for somebody.
So I don't disagree, and I'm going to wrap the Vikings up real quick and answer Paul. I mean, Michigan has not the SEC type defenses, but they're not the Pac-10 or Pac-12 or whatever the hell they are over there anymore. There still is Wisconsin, there still is Ohio State, there's still some okay defenses over in the Big Ten, and he did win a national title. So I think J.J. McCarthy is better. I don't think anybody's going to trade for the Titans backup that no, that quarterback from Liberty, Malik Willis, no. I don't think anybody will be that interested in him. In fact, I think the Cowboys have a bigger trade piece in Trey Lance than he will. And Charlie Ward didn't win a national title. So, Jeff, I look forward to having this debate with you here and when we wrap up the show here, because I can go all night about who won a national title and who didn't. McCarthy made some big plays and made some big throws when he had to, and they're NFL level throws. So I look forward to watching him do it in the NFL, because I think he's going to be okay. But, moving forward, the Vikings, just to put a wrap on it, they'll probably sign. This could be a place where they get a Mason Rudolph just until the rookie is ready to go. And so they'll sign a quarterback, but it won't be a big spending quarterback, aging quarterback, just a guy that's going to hold the place until the rookie's ready.
Well, I do have something to say, and it's not about this. I'll let me move this off so we can be up close. And so Charlie Ward won a national title. Matt Leinart won a national title. I think Charlie Ward won a Heisman Trophy, and I think Matt Leinart won a Heisman Trophy. Heisman Trophy does not equal NFL success, if we've seen from quarterbacks. Quarterbacks who win Heisman trophies aren't necessarily, surefire, all talent, all world. They're not those generational talents. They were good they're good in that year. The Heisman Trophy's great. It's cool. It's an award. But at the end of the day, that award does not translate to NFL success. Okay. You go in a Heisman Trophy putting up points against Duke and Western Michigan State and, Ashland University online, and you can have all these wonderful stats and win these major college awards. Doesn't translate to being an NFL generational talent. Generational talents are few and far between. But if you get a quarterback on a team that is a team that knows how to build players and build teams around them, you have success. Okay, even Patrick Mahomes, when he was drafted, nobody could believe that Kansas City would trade all the way up to pick number 10 to take a Patrick Mahomes. Nobody even scouted this guy. A lot of teams didn't even scout him. They didn't think that he was going to be this guy. But he went to the right situation and the right coach who put him in those right situations. And lo and behold, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, period. But he had to get to a place that took his talent, molded his talent. I mean, let's face it. Alex Smith was a fantastic quarterback in Kansas City. They went 11-5 or 12-4 the year that they drafted Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they were picking 27. They were almost in the Super Bowl that year with Alex Smith. So it's not like they had to go out and get this guy, but that's a team that was proactive, knowing that Alex Smith was not going to be their guy forever. And they went and got themselves a quarterback that they could sit for a year, learn the system. And that's what I'm talking about. I talk about organizations who have forethought, think ahead, and understand their situation and understand that we need to have a exit strategy to a new entrance to somebody else. There's teams that do that and do that well, and there's teams that don't. And the teams that don't put their franchise back every time they have to redo it, they put it back another 5 years. They put them back another 5 years because then they have to do it all over again. So, like I said, Heisman's and national titles don't translate to quarterbacks that are going to make it in the NFL.
Okay, so to wrap up on final comments here tonight, I appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight. We have a free agency frenzy on Wednesday, correct, Dave?
Yep, we do free agency frenzy. We got 2 more divisions to do on Tuesday. We're gonna wrap both the NFC West and the NFC South on Tuesday, and then Wednesday we're doing our free agent frenzy show.
Yeah, and so the second last point I have tonight is Dave said or Jeff said only 2 been to a Super Bowl, none have won. Well, Super Bowls are hard to win, right? They're really, really, really hard to win. And as a Buffalo fan, I think you can appreciate that. So thanks for hanging out with us tonight, Dave. This was excellent. I think we went through the divisions really quick, and I think we covered them went through the North really quick, and we covered them pretty good tonight. Yep. So, when we, as sure as good as you are about, saying where drafts are going to happen, I look forward to you correcting Jeff when Minnesota trades up and gets a quarterback.
I'll do my best, but
yeah.
Jeff also argued with me for 2 years that Baker Mayfield was the answer, and I didn't know what I was talking about. But again, I have nothing against Baker. He went through a lot, and the problem with Baker, just like Sam Darnold, they went to teams that don't know how to develop the quarterback. And nothing against them. It's their organization and the organization themselves. And that's why I said, if you end up in a good organization, you can turn out to be a fantastic NFL quarterback. You don't have to be all elite. You don't have to be whatever, but you can turn out with a team that takes talent and knows how to develop it. You can turn out to a very good NFL quarterback that has a long sustained career. When you go to those teams that don't develop the quarterback well, you play the roller coaster and you try to find that spot that fits. And you're always doing this because you go from one coordinator to another, trying to find that perfect fit. And sometimes teams and organizations have to be patient with you. It's hard to go to the teams that expect results today when you still have to find your stride and you don't have that. So, and Paul, I know you're going to be serious about the South. And Paul, I will tell you while you're here, if you would love to come on the show with us next week and talk to us about your New Orleans Saints, please do. I would love to have you on the show so we could not only see your comments, but actually hear what you really think about your Saints and where they're at and what you think that they might do free agency, draft wise, and all those things alike. So, Paul, I'm extending you an invitation. If you would like to come on the show next week, we would love to have you.
And I cannot wait to talk about the NFC South, because hasn't that been thrilling television for the last 3 years?
Absolutely. So anyway, from me and Eric, and all of us at From the Couch, thanks a lot for tuning in tonight. Next week is going to be hectic because on Tuesday there's already going to be teams that have already contracts in place. So I'm sure the Tuesday show is going to be off the rails anyway, because we are going to be talking about free agents who have already agreed to contracts. We're going to be hearing a lot of stuff, and we're going to try to keep it to what it's supposed to be. But I know, because I know me, I will not be able to do that. So I'm letting the world know now, Eric, everybody on From the Couch crew who's going to be here, it will be off the rails, but we will have fun like we always do. So until next week, next Tuesday, thanks you guys for tuning in. Be good. Have a good, safe weekend, and we will see you all next week. You have a great night. Later.